So I know we all look forward to hearing everything that is on his agenda for his term here, and it is our honor to have Attorney General Chris Carr.
Good afternoon. It is great to be here, and I want to thank the Atlanta Press Club for hosting this great lunch and for having me here. I mean, it is a tremendous honor to be asked to be a part of the Newsmaker speech, having worked with Senator Isaacson and been a part of other folks' political world. This is truly an honor, and I want to thank Lori and Sheena very much for putting this together. Thank the board. I was asking my wife, Joan, last night if she had been a part of any of the Atlanta Press Club functions, and she said she's been on plenty of the debate panels, but not the 18 that the Press Club had just a week or two ago, so I don't think she had been on one of those. As many of you already have heard, I was appointed to this role by Governor Deal on November the 1st, 2016, and I am so proud to be serving Georgia in this new capacity. In my opinion, there is no more solemn responsibility than to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution and laws of the state of Georgia, and protect the interests of the people of our state. As Attorney General, I'm working each and every day to do just that. And every day I'm guided by the principles of federalism, the rule of law, free enterprise, and common sense. Serving as Georgia's Attorney General is rewarding in countless ways, but one of the aspects I am truly enjoying most is working with the talented professionals that we have at the Office of the Attorney General. Their passion for public service is infectious, and I believe it's my job to support them as they too serve the people of Georgia each and every day. David Broder, the renowned political journalist for the Washington Post, once commented that in a democracy, a man who does not listen cannot lead. I've spent my first 5 months in office listening and learning, and I have to say that I am continually impressed with the quality of our attorneys, our investigators, our auditors, our nurse investigators, accountants, and all of the staff at the Office of the Attorney General. I'm also pleased to see the strength of the relationships that we have with federal, state, local, and nonprofit partners. The level of professionalism and dedication of all these groups to our state and nation is truly impressive. As a body tasked with representing the state of Georgia, we at the Office of the Attorney General do not gauge our success simply by wins and losses. We believe that we will have faithfully discharged our duties and represented the interests of the people of this state when all parties have been treated fairly and the outcome is consistent with the highest standards of justice. Justice is our chief goal and at the core of each and every decision that we make. So today I would like to discuss our efforts, which are based on these principles, to confront our state's challenges and enhance our opportunities. To ensure that government remains within its limited powers, there needs to be an Attorney General's office willing to challenge actions that overstep those limits. Our office has done that in the past, and we will continue to fiercely protect our citizens against unlawful overreach. I say that because of something I just referenced. Our job at the Attorney General's office is to defend the Constitution of the U.S., the Constitution and laws of our state, and the interests of the people of this state. That means overreach by any Congress and any president, and overreach at the state and local levels as well. Our most recent battles against federal overreach are consistent with this commitment. They include the Waters of the U.S. rule and the Clean Power Plan. During President Trump's transition, a group of fellow attorneys general and I raised concerns about the burdensome Waters of the U.S. rule. Georgia has been a leader in this initiative, fighting this rule since day one because the rule went well beyond what Congress authorized and what the Constitution allows. If allowed to go forward, we believe this rule will have significant consequences for homeowners, farmers, and other entities, subjecting them to costly permits and complex federal mandates to perform everyday tasks. The Waters of the U.S. rule is currently stayed by a federal court, while states, including Georgia, fight to challenge its legality. In addition, the Trump administration has responded, directing the Environmental Protection Agency and the Army Corps of Engineers to review and take action toward rescinding or revising the rule. The Clean Power Plan was also a far-reaching attempt by the prior administration to regulate what it could not legislate, and to take exclusively to the federal level what should have been reserved with the states as well. And again, the federal court took note of the seriousness of our multi-state argument by halting its implementation. We oppose this regulatory overreach because not only was it improper, it would have killed jobs in our state and would have increased electricity costs for Georgians. We believe that the Trump administration's recent executive order reflects the efforts of our multi-state coalition, and we appreciate their commitment to reviewing this rule and to restoring the proper role of Congress and the states. Now, to close on these two issues, let me just say this. We all in this room, all of us, believe in clean air and clean water. And it's also important to remember that we as a people have agreed how the laws are to be made in this country. And we have agreed to follow that process in our law and our rulemaking. If the cause is just, there should be no need to improperly circumvent that process. And these are two examples of how states' attorneys general can come together to ensure the process is done properly and protect their state's interests. The Office of the Attorney General is expected to provide excellence in the quality of our representation to state agencies, authorities, and boards that are our clients. This same level of excellence must also guide us as we protect those in our state who are most at risk and in need of our help. As Attorney General, it's my duty to get the right people in the room so that we can generate a meaningful dialogue that spurs real results for those most at risk in our communities. We will best do that by leveraging the assets, resources, and experience found in and among our federal, state, local, and nonprofit partners. Sometimes this will be through prosecution and enforcement of the law, and sometimes it will be through education and awareness. But either way, we will remain at the forefront of coordinating efforts to address evolving issues that plague our state's most vulnerable populations. Let me start with human trafficking. It's been reported that over 100,000 children and young adults are trafficked each and every year in our country, with the average age of entry into the sex trafficking trade being 12 to 14 years of age. I have a 12-year-old daughter, so that statistic hits home with me. And sickeningly enough, our children and young adults are being viewed by organized criminals as a renewable resource. Contrary to what some believe, this problem isn't happening in some faraway land. It's happening right here to our children. Since 2012, there have been 856 reports of human trafficking in our state alone, and 256 of those were reported last year. And while those numbers are troubling enough, imagine those that have gone unreported. Unfortunately, we saw this in the past couple of weeks with the situation in Sandy Springs, where a man was holding 8 women, 8 young girls, against their will. To combat this issue, we must first support those who are on the front lines who are investigating and prosecuting these crimes. Our state law enforcement officials, our district attorneys, and our federal law enforcement officials, including the U.S. attorney's offices and their teams. And it's critical that we work with all of our partners, including the incredible nonprofits such as Street Grace, Georgia Cares, Wellspring Living, Youth Spark, Out of Darkness, Truckers Against Trafficking, and so many more to increase awareness in the community so that all of us may recognize the signs of this modern-day slavery and understand how to report it. Our office, in partnership with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, State Patrol, local law enforcement officials, and several nonprofit groups, travels around the state educating our law enforcement officers, prosecutors, judges, school counselors, social workers, healthcare providers, and the general community on this very issue. And we are also working with Street Grace, a nonprofit I just mentioned, on the Demand and End campaign, a nationwide effort through the state attorneys general to increase public awareness that this horrific behavior is fueled by demand. This is a problem that's not going away unless we create a hostile environment for those who are seeking to perpetrate these crimes on our youth and young adults. And we just had a very encouraging legislative session in this regard. A bill championed in the General Assembly by Representative Burt Reeves is now under consideration by Governor Deal. HB 341 further enhances prosecutors' abilities to go after the demand side of this issue. And we'll continue to work with our partners to strengthen these laws and build awareness. I think we can all agree that our children and young adults are worth it. Elder abuse, now whether physical, emotional, through neglect or financial Exploitation is a tragic and ever-evolving problem in our state, and one that cannot be allowed to continue. We've seen the cruel and inhumane treatment of older and at-risk adults from every end of the spectrum. In some cases, they're physically beaten, malnourished, deprived of medical treatment, and completely conned out of their identities and their benefits. What's more, these crimes are particularly devastating when perpetrated by a family member. And shockingly enough, reports show 90% of elder abuse offenses are committed by a relative. In fact, on February 27th, our office announced charges in an elder abuse exploitation case against Reginald Keith, the adopted son of the victim in this case, who was an 89-year-old retired U.S. Postal worker. Over a period of 4 years, we believe Keith systematically exploited his father by forging checks in his name and depositing them into an account for his own cleaning and contracting business. Our indictment also details that Keith ultimately stole $90,000 from his father for his own living expenses, which include a luxury BMW sports sedan. The Office of the Attorney General will not hesitate to work with our partners to investigate and prosecute anyone engaging in these criminal activities, seeking justice for those who cannot advocate for themselves. And moving forward, we will be even more focused on this issue via our Medicaid fraud control and consumer protection units to make sure that we end the scourge of elder abuse in Georgia. Opioid abuse, America's biggest drug problem, isn't on America's streets, it's in our medicine cabinets. The CDC has officially declared prescription drug abuse as a national epidemic. Between 2000 and 2012, the number of Georgia hospital admissions for overdoses of opioids, not including heroin, jumped by almost 1,000%. Let me ask, by a show of hands, how many of you have had a family member or a friend or a coworker that has struggled with the addiction of prescription drug abuse or heroin? As you can see, it's an issue. This is an issue that we have to face. We have a huge problem. In addition to educating law enforcement and those who work with children on a daily basis, we believe that peer-to-peer, kid-to-kid connection is key to fighting this epidemic. Our statewide campaign for high school students, called We're Not Going to Take It, allows us to go into schools and encourage students to create video public service announcements about the hardships associated with addiction. This year we announced our winner in February, who was a bright young man from Dunwoody High School who struggled with addiction firsthand and had a powerful message for his peers. And this is just one way that we raise awareness regarding this important issue, and we will remain steadfastly committed not only to this program, but to fighting substance abuse as a whole. So let me switch gears for a moment. I'm a firm believer in free but fair markets and know the value of capitalism and pro-growth policies. So let me put up my economic development hat on for a second. We've worked hard collectively to bring jobs and investment to Georgia. When I served as Governor Deal's commissioner for the Georgia Department of Economic Development, the state was recognized as the top state in the nation in which to do business 3 consecutive years. During that time, our department helped facilitate over 1,000 projects across the state, representing almost $14.5 billion of investment and the creation of more than 84,000 jobs. But these results did not come without collaboration and hard work. During those years, we worked closely with Governor Deal, the legislature, our local utility partners, and the state's business community to create a consistent and predictable business environment that companies can rely on. Companies choose Georgia for many reasons, one of which is because our state and local governments are seen as partners and not adversaries to the business community. We want to continue to build on this momentum, and I look forward to continuing to be a partner in our state's growth. But it's also important to recognize the unique role the Attorney General plays in supporting and protecting consumers. Let's be clear, there is nothing pro-business about companies who mislead or deceive consumers, and we will continue to do our very best to eliminate these types of practices through our Consumer Protection Unit. And we're not interested in any way in trapping unwitting companies or playing a game of gotcha. But when a company knowingly violates the law, we believe it's appropriate to hold that company accountable to Georgia's consumers. Our office recently won a settlement against an out-of-state payday lender, Western Sky Financial. The settlement came on the heels of an October 2016 ruling by the Georgia Supreme Court stating that out-of-state internet lenders are subject to the state's Payday Lending Act, which prohibits a lender from making loans of $3,000 or less unless that lender is licensed in the state or under federal law. Georgia law caps interest rates on such loans at 10%. Western Sky and its affiliates sold over 18,000 loans to Georgia borrowers, bearing interest rates of 140 to 340%, and collected $32 million in interest and fees from those consumers since 2010. The settlement requires Western Sky and its affiliates to pay $23.5 billion in consumer restitution, to cease all collections and forgive all outstanding loans, which will provide an additional $17 million in loan relief to Georgia borrowers. And 2 weeks ago, we mailed out over 10,000 forms to Georgians, some of whom could receive more than $13,000 each in restitution. Now, this is a great way that we work each and every day through our Consumer Protection Unit to seek justice on behalf of the people of Georgia. Now, I truly believe that those of us who hold public office are servants of the people, and those in government service are trustees of the people's business, including their official records and their documents. Transparency and access to government are critical to our office and ultimately to our state and nation. As John Adams observed over 200 years ago, political plants grow in the shade. And for our representative republic to best function, we must ensure that those who elect public officials will have access to and information about what those public officials are doing. Access to government meetings and records provides citizens with the information that they need to fully participate in our process and to ensure that government officials are held accountable for their actions. Through our open government mediation program, we will continue to serve as an honest broker between local government and private citizens when disagreements occur. Many of the issues that we hear about occur not because of malicious intent, but a lack of understanding or knowledge about what the law in Georgia is. And as a result, we will be conducting an open government tour across Georgia, welcoming local officials and others to join us for training sessions or a refresher on their responsibilities to the public under the Open Records Act and the Open and Public Meetings Act. Please stay tuned for dates and locations. I'm committed to the role that we play in openness in government, and we will remain dedicated to assisting whenever called on. And I want to commend the work of my predecessor, Sam Olens. He was truly a champion of open government. I'm proud to follow in his footsteps and to continue forward with that same passion. Before I conclude, let me mention one thing. The Georgia Legal Food Frenzy competition, which kicks off on Monday. The Georgia Legal Food Frenzy is a competition that we lead in conjunction with the Young Lawyers Division of the State Bar and the Georgia Food Bank Association. The competition is timed to help food banks as they go into the summer and to be well stocked to meet an increased demand for food. 1 in 4 children in Georgia are food insecure, and nearly 60% of Georgia's public school students are eligible for either a free or reduced lunch each day. During the summer, unfortunately, fewer than 15% have access to the lunch program. So this campaign will assist many families in our state by putting food on their table and provides an excellent opportunity for private public sector entities to challenge each other outside the office or the courtroom for a worthy cause. And this year we put a spotlight on in-house counsel to get involved, so if you fit the bill, please let us know and join us in this worthy cause. We're looking forward to what we know will be another successful competition, and we are honored to do our part. I am proud as Attorney General to defend the interests of all Georgians. I believe that to do our job successfully, it takes partnerships at every level: local, state, federal, private, nonprofit, and public. I cannot stress enough that we all must continue the conversation about our state's challenges and opportunities and work together to pursue justice. For our homeowners, farmers, and small business owners facing the burden of government overreach, we will seek justice. For our children and young adults enslaved by sex traffickers or succumbing to the prescription drug epidemic, we will seek justice. For older adults suffering from abuse of any kind, we will seek justice. And for citizens demanding their governments operate transparently, we will seek justice. This is what we are known for in Georgia, and it's what makes us a special place. Thank you all. And I will open the floor for questions.
Are there any further developments in the water wars legislation? I believe the special master's report was presented to the U.S. Supreme Court. What happens next?
That's right. So then they put it on a schedule for oral argument in the fall. So we still have a process there. So that's kind of separate. In addition, the state of Alabama has sued the Corps of Engineers based on the water control manual update that came out in December. Separate and apart, but if you recall, one of the things that came out in December was this water control manual that, as long as I worked for Senator Isaacson, we were working on getting that update, and it was very favorable to the state. But Alabama has filed suit. That's a separate issue, but also somewhat related. Yes.
Yeah, I enjoyed your speech, particularly the part about transparency. That's like the word and the practice that I've really been pushing for. And you have the open meetings law and the open records law on the local level. What are your thoughts about it being extended to the state level so that we can have access to that information?
Well, again, there's been great conversation. I know there are several exceptions to the law that are out there, and we want to be a part of the conversation. One of the things that I know is somewhat limiting to us in the mediation program is one of our clients when they are at issue. But we want to be a part of the conversation, and we want to continue to do whatever we can to convene those types of conversations. There are other issues that have come up as well. Folks have brought to my attention just in the last 2 or 3 months that I've been in office. But I think the most important thing is to have that dialogue, have it with the legislative branch, have it with us, and we'd be happy to be a part of that. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to know, and I'm not sure if this is part of under your jurisdiction, but does the state have any role or any position on whether local police should collaborate with ICE in apprehending undocumented immigrants?
That's much more of a federal issue, so I can't speak to how that's being coordinated in Washington. There are programs that local communities will participate in. Some have chosen not to, but those are outside the purview. We represent the Department of Public Safety, of which the state patrol is a part of, but not the local police. Local police are subject to local jurisdictions.
There were a number of attorney generals that filed suit against Trump's immigration order. Was that something you looked at?
It's something I looked at and chose not to do, and I'll tell you why. Having spent time in Washington and having the experience, number one, immigration is supposed to be a federal issue, number one. Number two, there is no more important duty of the federal government than protect and defend the United States of America. And in this era of terrorism that we live, we must know who is coming to this country. That is part of what the federal government must do and it should do. And we have to have those two. And we've seen in Europe what's happened when the best of intentions. And on the one hand, we need to know who is coming, and on the other hand, we need to be able to those who truly are refugees and are coming from some horrific parts of the world. But what we saw in Europe is those that are trying to seek peace for the right reasons were being infiltrated by those who weren't. We just simply need to know who is coming to the United States of America, that they are who they are, and the temporary pause that the administration had done was appropriate. Others have disagreed, some courts have disagreed, but that was not a lawsuit that I wanted to take part of because, again, I do believe that there is no more important duty of the federal government than to protect the United States. So we need to know in this era of terrorism who is coming. Now, the state of Georgia has been very open to refugees, and I think that's something we should be a part of. I think we've got the second or third largest refugee population, and that's right. We should. If people are truly refugees and they need to seek peace from, like I said, what's going on in Syria and elsewhere in the world, that's a good thing. But we just need to know who they are. And the pause on now 5 or 6 state sponsors of terrorism, I believe, is appropriate. I believe knowing that, that again, folks that are coming from those 6 countries are who they are. that makes sense. So I didn't join some of the attorneys general that did participate. Jerry?
General, mine's more of a comment than a question, and it was more just a thank you. As you know, as we've talked about, unfortunately, the Jewish community has come under attack. We've had bomb threats to the local Jewish Community Center and the Anti-Defamation League here, and again, mine's a public thank you for you being one of the few public officials who stood up and spoke out against what's happened. And you know, in these times, we appreciate all the support that we can get, and I just wanted to thank you and acknowledge you for all that you've done on that issue. So thank you again for all your support.
Well, thank you, Jared. And that's another great example, though, of good communication between the private sector and government officials. Jeremy had brought a number of issues to my attention. The Marcus Jewish Community Center is literally almost in my backyard. And let me be clear, whether, irrespective of any specific, you know, situation or what may have gone on over the last 2 or 3 weeks, it is absolutely wrong for any house of worship or religious organization to be attacked or to be threatened. And we need to stand up and say so. That has no room in the United States of America. That has no room or place in the state of Georgia. That's just wrong. And when it happens to anybody in the community, we need to stand up and speak out, and I'll continue to do that. So thanks, Jeremy. I appreciate it.